Thousands of Calgarians have served our nation in war, and many made the ultimate sacrifice. The Calgary Soldiers Memorial, this monument, is dedicated to preserving the memory of those who fell. What you're about to see is the story of one of these monumental Canadians. "11:45 p.m., April 22nd, 1915, 500 meters south of Kitchener Wood, Belgium. Lieutenant-Colonel Russell Boyle walked between the ranks of the 800 men of 10th Battalion, preparing them for what was about to happen.
We've been itching for a fight, and now we're gonna get it.
The Battle of Kitchener Wood was about to begin. The reality of modern war was about to descend on Calgary. Boyle's greatest and final adventure was underway. Russell Lambert Boyle was born in Ontario in 1880. At age 20, he fought in the Boer War and was seriously wounded. After the war, Russell and his brother Mayland came west and bought a ranch near Crossfield, just north of Calgary. Russell joined the 15th Alberta Light Horse with the rank of Major. Standing 6'2", Boyle was handsome, rugged, and charismatic, a natural leader of men who could handle wild horses and unruly soldiers equally well. A contemporary described him as a wonderful man who seemed destined to leave his mark. He was the model for the Boer War statue in Calgary's Central Park. Yet war was not something Calgarians thought much about that summer. The city was booming. The population had doubled. Signs of prosperity were everywhere, and most impressive, the recently completed Palliser Hotel. The summer was warm, and the parks were filled as Calgarians enjoyed their newfound affluence and leisure. But in August 1914, there was war. Thousands of men volunteered, including Boyle, who was given the command of the 10th Battalion. October 3, 1914, Canada's 30,000 volunteers sailed for England. At that time, it was the largest military force in history to cross the Atlantic. In England, the Canadians endured 4 months of soggy, muddy, bone-chilling conditions. The camp flooded, and men took sick by the hundreds. In February 1915, the 1st Division arrived in France. By April, its 18,000 men occupied 2.5 kilometers of front line on the Ypres salient in Belgium. Boyle's 10th Battalion was held in reserve. At 5 p.m. on April 22nd, the Germans infamously released 160 tons of green chlorine gas on the unsuspecting French. Panic-stricken French soldiers fled past the Canadians as gas mask-clad German infantry advanced steadily behind the poisonous fumes into a 6-kilometer gap in the French line. The Canadians were in danger of being surrounded. The situation was desperate. Boyle was ordered to counterattack at Kitchener Wood, the furthest point of the German advance. Boyle's 10th would lead, followed by the 800 men of 16th Battalion, Canadian Scottish. Boyle would be attacking blind and in the dark. According to historian Tim Cook, Boyle believed his best chance was a surprise attack in the dark that would shock the enemy. Or so everyone hoped. Boyle whispered the order to advance at 11:48, and the 1,600 men moved out in Canada's first attack of the First World War. Just over halfway, still undetected, they reached a 2-meter-high hedge covered in barbed wire. The men used their bayonets to cut through. The noise alerted the Germans. An officer recalled what happened next as parachute flares lit the night.
You could see the spit of the fire from the rifles. Then came the cries of those that were hit.
A hidden machine gun on the left opened fire and caught the Canadians in a deadly hail of bullets. They fell in droves, screaming, dying. Boyle rallied his men. As the 2 battalions merged, their survivors, mad with rage, reached the German line. Just after reaching the tree line, Boyle was hit by 5 machine gun bullets in his thigh. A bayonet brawl broke out. The Germans were overwhelmed. The survivors broke and ran, with the Canadians in hot pursuit. With his wound bound and bandaged, Boyle limped to the rear, joining an ever-growing torrent of wounded men, and was ambulanced to a nearby hospital. The fighting continued all night, but by morning, there weren't enough fit men to hold the position. The 10th's 800 men had been reduced to 188 and forced to retreat to the south edge of the woods. The costly attack had slowed the German advance, but the price of such bravery meant that soon hundreds of Canadian homes were shrouded in grief. as the casualty telegrams began arriving, bearing the heartbreaking salutation, "Deeply regret to inform you." Meanwhile, in hospital, Boyle had told everyone he expected to make a full recovery. But on April 25th, he took a turn for the worse and died. He is buried in Belgium. He was 35 years old. In 1930, Boyle's widow commemorated a bronze plaque to her husband and the 10th Battalion on the steps of Calgary City Hall. A grateful city had honored its fallen heroes. Russell Lambert Boyle had left his mark for all to see.